troublemaker. I've been a late-night player. I've been broke as a joke. I've been a money maker. I've been a record breaker, taking credit as an educator. I've been known to spit the flows and make a shaky, shaky thing. Popping, locking, stopping, let it hang. Watch us as we drop this hip-hop, it's like it stings. We make a whole room drop and everybody sing. We want the funk. We gotta have that funk. We kick it old school, we think we're so cool. We take it back to the past, we gonna act a fool. Up jumps the middle finger, make my Jaeger.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Sports Buzz, a Fanatical View. I am your host, Scott D. Lewis, here live in studio Comcast Cable, Channel 23, downtown Denver, Connecticut, on this May 10th. As that heat wave from last week has subsided and we've settled into some nice, comfortable, spring-like weather. A little rain this afternoon kind of messed things up, but it was short-lived and it's cleared up and things have looked good as we were coming back into the studio. I think it's going to be nice tomorrow. A little rain this weekend? Maybe?
Yeah, it's supposed to rain most of the day Saturday and Sunday. I think the rain just in the morning, but
okay.
Most of the weekend's going to be for Mother's Day. It's going to be.
My godson to BMX on Saturday morning. You think it's going to rain? What's going to happen? It could be messy. They've been having, speaking of BMX, and let's say hello to my right-hand man, Mr. Bob Broad Jr. Hello,
Hey,
Bob.
Mr. Scott. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm happy that we're not in the midst of 90-degree weather during spring, and it's more spring-like, so that's good.
Yes, finally, we actually having spring instead of having that hot summer.
And the good weather, you know, Bethel has their BMX track.
Right.
And the first 2 weeks of races have been this past 2 weeks, and they have like set records for how many racers are showing up. Which the only problem is it makes it go very late for the kids,
right?
Because there's so many people racing. But great for the track, great for Bethel BMX and overall BMX. If you're interested in BMX, Bethel BMX, Trumbull has a track. Those are a couple right in this area that they do great jobs there, and there's some good racing going on. But big crowds the last 2 weeks. We'll see if that continues as the season goes on. But they are off to a good start. Bob, or his show, of course, Spotlight on Tuesday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 12. Mr. Mike Toohey is the director. He's in the control room. Expose Cinema, Friday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 1. Our former production assistant extraordinaire, Mr. Connor Faco, is here, but I don't know. We might have to drop that title, Bob, because when your kids come these days, they tend to spend more time in the green room.
Yeah, I know.
He's watching Bob's Burgers right now, which I can't fault him for that. It's a great show, but still, he used to be all in with helping out the show.
I know. Hey, you know what happens? They try for so long, and then all of a sudden they lose that.
That's true. We might be joined by the Met Maniac, who always is battling traffic at this time of day, and if he does show up tonight, I think we're going to bring him in and get him on a microphone and see if he can help Bob explain what's going on with the Mets.
It's like that newspaper says, who's up first?
Right.
I have, which, the way the Mets have been playing and the way they've been going the last 2 weeks, I don't know. Even Mr. Met could probably make heads or tails.
And they really ran into something yesterday, batting out of order in the first inning.
Oh, that was, I don't know what. They get two different things, a computer that writes out.
Yeah, we're going to get farther into it later in the show, so let's save it for later. Let's talk about some other baseball stuff, Bob, and we'll say the number, 203-792-4101, and then we look at the Westerners Celebrity Breakfast, 24th Annual. Chris Chambliss is the man on the docket who will be there bright and early telling all his stories. Let's see, we got that information right there. Played from 71 to 88. Nice long career.
That was
for
a
the
nice
Yankees, Indians, and Braves. Two-time World Series champion as player. Also won 4 as New York Yankees hitting coach. I didn't realize that. 71 Rookie of the Year.
Yes.
All-Star and Gold Glove winner. So obviously great. Well, I mean, he was a phenomenal fielder. But also came up with the big hits from time to time, more times than not, probably. But he was a cornerstone of those 70s Yankee teams.
Yeah, 76 and to 78, that was the 3 major years. So
that'll be a great event. And speaking of the Westerners, okay, so we're going to do a little something tonight. We mentioned the phone number, 203-792-4101. I have in my hand right here 4 tickets, complimentary. They can be yours.
Yes, and they can be used at any game.
For any game,
Any home
to the
game.
Danbury Westerners this year. Season starts the first week in June, runs through August.
Yes.
About 2-month season. We're going to do a little trivia question. If anybody can answer this question, they'll get 4 tickets. You're going to have to call in, and then you'll have to come down to the station and pick them up. But last year at the Celebrity Breakfast, Dwight Doc Gooden was scheduled to be the guest speaker, and he was a late scratch no-show. Who pinch hit for Dwight Doc Gooden at last year's Danbury Westerners Celebrity Breakfast, which was the 23rd at that time.
And he was also a member of the '86 World Champion Mets.
Yeah, this player was a member of the '86 Mets. He's in the Mets organization as a coach with their Double-A
Binghamton
team,
Mets.
Binghamton Mets. Getting himself familiar with Tim Tebow, who the Mets might need.
Yes.
But okay, so who pinch hit for Dwight Gooden at last year's Celebrity Breakfast? If you know that answer and you want to call, 203-792-4101. 4 tickets are right here. Can be yours. Just saying. Get on the horn. All right, let's get into the actual show portion of the show.
Okay.
We'll start with the Kentucky Derby this weekend.
Which was a mother of a race.
His mother was a mother. His father was a mother. Justified his ranking as he was the favorite going into the race, and he justified that by winning the 144th Run for the Roses. Broke the curse of Apollo.
Yes.
First time since 1882 that a horse who did not run as a 2-year-old won the Kentucky Derby. He moves to 4-0 all time. He's won his first 3 races this year. So he only started running in February.
Right.
And he is off to a great start to his career, winning the Kentucky Derby. Bob Baffert wins his 5th. He was the trainer, 5th Kentucky Derby. And of course, Bob Baffert gave us the Triple Crown just a few years ago with American Pharoah. 3 years ago that was. And we'll see if he can get another one.
See if he can repeat.
We'll never know. Or, in 2 weeks, we'll find out at the Belmont. And then they have or is it Preakness then Belmont?
Preakness and then Belmont. Belmont's the 3rd.
Right. So we'll see what happens. I couldn't believe it rained so much there because we've been in a pretty good stretch of weather.
Oh, yeah, but it poured.
I did not think it was going to be rainy there. We said that last week, but they had 3 inches of rain come down. They said it was the sloppiest track ever in the history of Kentucky Derby. But he, as you can see, ran clean, and pretty much out in front. And you can see he is not covered in mud at all. Very clean race for him, and he looked good throughout. As the 157,000 people that were there got to see quite a performance by him. And the jockey, Mike Smith, got his 2nd Derby all time. He was on Giacomo, if you remember, in 2005, Bob. 50-1 odds.
Speaking of that, the 2 horses that came in 2nd and 3rd, both went off at 10-1.
Okay.
And it was a photo finish.
For 2nd place.
Yes.
Which you very rarely see that happen. But that course kept coming, and I think he caught him, right? The guy who did finish 2nd? Because he was off the pace, and he really had a great stretch run down the stretch, caught him for the photo finish for 2nd. And my boy, whoever that was, who was the long shot that people were going for, did end up, I think, 5th. So he was in the mix. Some of the other favorites did not run well. But there are some other horses that are doing, that are going to be, who have talent.
Yes.
So it's not going to be easy for him to come right back, get the Triple Crown, or even get a 2nd one. But he is off to a good start. Great run for him in the 144th Run for the Roses as he wins the Kentucky Derby. Pretty good event. Too bad it rained so hard down there, but I'm sure everybody had a good time anyways. All right. Let's move into the NBA and the Celtics.
Congratulations, your Celtics are
back in the Eastern Conference Finals for the 2nd year in a row with pretty much a brand new team. Only 4 players from last year's team remain. Al Horford, who's been playing tremendous. And you could really see Horford playing better throughout the entire season. He's playing great in the playoffs. but he really seemed to enjoy the more balance on this team and the ball movement, which was evident on this team from the beginning. Last year, of course, Isaiah Thomas was tremendous, and no one can ever take away what Isaiah Thomas did for them. But it was a little bit of a ball-dominant play as he really, dictated what took place. This year, they have been moving the ball throughout, and Al Horford has benefited from that, and he's had a great playoffs. But there you see Marcus Smart, who's the other player who's still in. Jaylen Brown, the second-year player, there he is, who's been tremendous in the postseason, and in this particular against this Philadelphia team, he pulled that hamstring in Game 7 against the Bucks, had to come out, could not return. He was sat out Game 1 in this series, which they won, and he has been getting treatment, fighting his way back into the series, and really working through that and playing well. His first play, actually, he did come in that Game 1. His first play of the series, after nobody thought he was going to play with that hamstring, and they thought they were going to hold him out, he came up with a loose ball at midcourt, beat everybody down court for a thunderous dunk, and it was just like, wow.
I know.
This kid's playing on a bad hamstring, and he does that, beats the Philadelphia players to a loose ball at midcourt and goes down for the dunk. So you got him, and also Scary Terry Rozier, who was a bench player for them last year and has been holding down the starting position with Kyrie Irving being out, and he has just been going off in these playoff games. And he hit, of course, a big three last night late as the Celtics were up 11 in the third quarter, and then they kind of went to sleep a little bit, and Philadelphia, desperate as they were to keep their season alive, rallied and actually took, I think, a 6-point lead. Celtics recovered from that, went back up by 6 themselves, and then they kind of went, the Sixers made one more run and were up by 4 with about 2 minutes to go. And it really was dicey because the Celtics won the first 3 games. Of course, you look at the end now and say, well, this series was easy for them as they won it 4-1. But no, not really. They won Game 3 in overtime, lost Game 4, which you could expect. They weren't going to sweep Philly. Game 4 was in Philly.
In Philadelphia.
But if you lose Game 5, and all of a sudden a 3-0 lead falls to 3-2, and you have to go back to Philadelphia for Game 6,
which would have been.
And if you don't win that game, which would be a good chance, you would lose because Philadelphia does have a good team, and they would be feeling much better about themselves now, winning 2 in a row, getting Game 6 at home. The Celtics would be under a huge amount of pressure to not become the first team ever to lose. No team in the NBA has ever lost after going up 3-0. We know, of course, the Yankees did that.
Of course.
To the Red Sox. And
speaking
of course, it's happened a couple times. All right, the Met Maniac is here. He'll pull up a chair, and we'll get him in on some of this action, too. We'll maybe hear some thoughts on his on NBA, NHL, but of course, we got him in here for some Mets action soon. But, they did not want that pressure, so they win it 114, 112. They went on about a 9-2 run in the last 2 minutes to pull it off. Great effort by them. They get it done. And as I mentioned, Bob, it's balanced offensive attack. For the most part, it's great defense, although they gave up 112 last night defensively. They did struggle a little bit. The thing that's concerning me is, and I'm surprised it hasn't been made much more of a big deal by the announcers, is they're missing free throws at bad times, especially rebounding for the most part. The Sixers were one of the top rebounding teams in the league this year. The Celtics, I believe, held their own pretty well, and they did so also against Milwaukee. I think they out-rebounded Milwaukee at least 5 out of the 7 games, if not 6. But, they were being out-rebounded some in Game 3 before their big rally. And then last night they did get out-rebounded, but it wasn't that bad. So if they can rebound, make their free throws, and do their usual defensive thing, spread the ball around. I don't know, is Mike mic'd up yet?
Yes, he is.
Yes.
We'll get, of course, we want him in here for baseball. He's also a basketball guy.
Yes, he is.
What do you think, Mike, as far as Celtics Cavs going forward? You know, the Cavaliers, of course, swept Toronto, who's just a disgrace when it comes to them having to face up with the Cavs. That was a joke that they got swept. You knew it was going to happen once they lost that game one in overtime. By one point, you knew it was just going to be done, and they rolled over completely in game two. They shot 60% in the first half, but only had a 2-point lead, and then Bron did his thing and stared them down, and they really wilted in that, and it was all over. But what do you think with this Celtics team? It's all about coaching. There's no stars on the team right now. They played without Hayward all year. Kyrie's out. They're getting it done with these young, but they are the youngest team in the NBA. Do you think they have a chance to knock off this flawed Cleveland team, or do we think Cleveland got their act together with this sweep at Toronto? Because we remember what happened in first round against Indiana, went 7.
No, I think they do have a chance. And one of the reasons I think they have a chance is because of Brad Stevens. He's probably, as they talked about last night, probably the best in-game coach in the league. And I think the players have to believe, because they have the talent to do it. Believe it or not, even missing, if Kyrie Irving was there, I would say I would pick the Celtics in about 5 or 6 if Kyrie Irving was there, right?
Yeah, him not being there,
exactly.
You know, at some point that catches up to a team. You have to be at your best as you move through the playoffs. Knocking off Milwaukee, an inexperienced team, which was, you know, mixed reviews all year. Great player they have with the Greek Freak. But, you know, they fired their coach, Jason Kidd, midseason. You know, so you know Milwaukee's got their issues. The Sixers were the team everybody was picking in the East this year with Cleveland's flaws, the injuries to Boston. You never know what you're going to get from Toronto. The Wizards they underachieved all year. So everybody was jumping on the Sixers team, but this is their first go-around as well. And the Celtics' defensive scheme against them was just tremendous. I mean, they really took Ben Simmons out of it. They took the three-point shooting game out of it for the Sixers. So if they can, you know, and you mentioned Brad Stevens coaching, how about this? Did you guys see what took place? The coaches had their Coach of the Year voting that was released this morning or last night. Not one single coach in the NBA gave a vote to Brad Stevens.
That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
Can you believe that?
Absolutely.
I mean, is there
ridiculous.
something going on? Are they like feeling jealousy?
It could be, you know.
I mean, for that to happen is unreal.
Oh, it's
unbelievable. I could not believe that. But all right, so we'll keep this moving. Cavaliers, we said, swept Toronto, rolled them over. And well, I did want to mention the best sign I saw, because we've been hearing about the process in Philadelphia for all these years. The best sign I saw in the Garden last night, process of elimination, as the Celtics finished them off. That was a good sign. In the West, and this is the series everybody's been waiting for all year, and we're finally going to get it. You know, the Pelicans did get one win, the Jazz did get one win, but both those series, Warriors and Rockets, finished off their series 4-1, 4-1 in both of those. And so we'll get this series that everybody wants. Remember, Rockets have home court in this, as they were the #1 seed out west, as the Warriors were, you know, disinterested maybe at times. Draymond Green certainly seems interested right now as he's upped his game. Curry's back after missing round 1 with injury. He looks like he's fine. We remember, though, a couple years ago when he was injured, the year that they lost to the Cavs, Curry had that injury early, missed part of that first round series, and was never quite the same. And this is basically the same injury. So we'll see going forward, because as the competition gets stiffer, you know, you can overcome, maybe if you're not playing 100%. The Celtics can overcome not having Kyrie early rounds, but it's eventually can't catch up to you. So I think everybody's saying Kyrie's back. But I don't know yet if he's 100%. So we'll see as the Rockets get to test him. Chris Paul making it past the second round for the first time ever. Yep. That trade to the Rockets seemed to be working out well for him. So we'll see some good NBA action. All right, we got the NHL to get through, and then we definitely got to make some time for baseball. So I'm going to try to go through the NHL a little bit quick. And I guess maybe I'll do that because the Bruins are out now.
Yeah. And of course,
Tampa moved through.
I have to ask you the biggest question.
Okay.
What's the idea? What's up with this your Boston player that wants to lick everybody?
I was hoping to avoid this topic, but Bob, who I talked to on the phone today, said he was going to ask me this question. I don't have much of an answer for that. Brad Marchand, to his credit, last night in an interview did say he has to cut that bleep out. He needs to figure out what is leading him to do this. I think, it hurt them because he was targeted by the refs. They called him for embellishment on a play that was clearly not embellishment. The refs had it in the tank for the Bruins this entire series. It was a lopsided affair from the officiating standpoint. Tampa Bay did play tremendous, and Tampa Bay, third time in the last 4 years making it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Right.
2015, they made it all the way to the finals where they lost to the Blackhawks. The Mighty Ning, a lot of people forget, have a title, Stanley Cup title, winning against Calgary in 2003, 2004. And of course, Bob, you see with this Tampa Bay team, some of your old Rangers.
Yes, I do.
Including your old captain.
Yes.
Is there. So I can't take anything away, but Game 4, Bruins down 2-0. They rallied, got a tremendous shorthanded goal, Marchand to Bergeron, to go up 3-2 in the third period. And, and it wasn't just this one call, but this one call was epitome of the whole series. As a Tampa Bay defensive player takes down Charlie McAvoy behind the net, tripped him, hooked him, grabbed him, threw him to the ice, was a turnover. He makes the quick pass to the front, and Stamkos blasted home for the game-tying goal, which preceded the overtime goal. And that's the whole series right there. If the Bruins win that game and it's 2-2,
right,
going back to Tampa Bay in Game 5, it doesn't matter if they lose that because they still get Game 6 back at home. They can tie it, and then it's,
Game 7
where anything can happen. That is just unbelievable. And the Bruins were in the penalty box all series long. And this is not just a Bruins fan saying this. The announcers, the guys in the studio were saying throughout the series, and had video evidence to prove it, and they kept highlighting it throughout. And as soon as that play happened, one of the guys in the broadcast said, this is going to be trouble. The Bruins have been complaining about the officials all along, and this is a blatant penalty. And it was, and it cost them that game, cost them a 2-2 series instead of being down 3-1, really cost them. But the Bruins had no answer. They did not score an even-handed, even-strength goal since Game 1 from their forward line. I think a defensive player may have got one in Game 2. But bottom line is they could only get goals on the power play. They could not get an even-strength goal as Tampa's defense was too much. And I think Tuca time in Boston is Tuca time up because there's no way the Bruins fans are going to have any confidence in this guy going forward. It's tough for a goalie when you look at the replays. You say, well, he had no chance on this. It wasn't his fault. There was a mistake made by the defense. But when it comes to the playoffs, and you want a guy at one point to be like, win a game for the team, stand on his head. Not a Bruins fan out there is going to tell you they think he can do that for them. And we've been down this road with him now a little bit too many times. He did lead them to the Stanley Cup Finals after Tim Thomas won it for them, and they lost a tough series to the Blackhawks, but it just does not seem like it's going to happen for him, even though his regular season and his stats prove out that he's one of the top goalies in the league, but he's not getting it done. All right, the Caps got it done in Game 6 in overtime, so we don't have to worry about the Penguins. I know Bob's happy about that. Thank God, 2-1 in overtime, and they now move to 2-10 all time against. So since 1998, this was the first time the Capitals get past the second round. And also for the DC Sports, it's the first time in a professional circumstance that one of their teams made it to the Final Four of any of the sports since the Redskins winning Super Bowls back in the early 90s. So long drought for DC sports fans to get even this far, let alone win a championship. Game 7 tonight, Preds versus Jets. Tough loss at home for Winnipeg. They were up 3-2 against Nashville, who did go to the Stanley Cup Finals last year, and they lose 4-0. You can see the fans right there in the background have to be saying, oh no, as they were hoping to get to the Western Conference Finals, but they're going to have to do it on the road against Nashville tonight. Vegas is sitting waiting for the winner. They beat the Sharks.
Vegas has got one of the best
4-2, and they did it 3-0 in Game 6 in San Jose. So we'll see what happens. All right.
First year.
Who's on first? What's on second? What's the batting order? Let's mention the fact that we got those tickets. If anybody knows that trivia question, last year Dwight Doc Gooden was a no-show. Who pinch hit for him? Former Met, former World Series winner. Who was the guy who came and spoke at the Celebrity Breakfast? You get 4 tickets if you want to call and win it. 203-792-4101. We'll be trying to give away some tickets, I think, maybe as we move on.
Yes, throughout the season.
Not just tonight. But tonight we're going to start it.
Yes.
You got to know the answer and call in. Mike, Bob, I know Bob doesn't want to talk about this. 11-1 to 18-17, and then yesterday you lose 2 out of 3. We only got a few minutes left, unfortunately. 2 out of 3 to the Reds, who are 10-27. I mean, What is going on with your Mets right now?
We don't know. We don't know who's
Mike,
out first either.
This is what I was thinking about this. You know what the problem with the Mets is? It comes down to one thing to me: ownership.
Oh,
Yeah, ownership hangs over. It's a dark cloud that hangs over this team.
Absolutely.
And Sandy Alderson has to make moves with his hands kind of behind his back. He can't just go out and make the moves that he really probably wants to make, so he has to do these stopgap things, look for, these older players now that he brought in, which are great historic players, but they're past their prime. And you just got a squad that's out there that's got problems, and they're snake bit with injuries, as it's starting to creep up on them now, with more guys going down with injuries.
and of course,
But to bat out of order in the first inning and lose 2 out of 3 to Cincinnati, as we mentioned, a team that already fired their coach and is 10-27, really, really cannot be sitting well after all the excitement of going 11-1.
oh yes.
And so now you're looking at the Braves at 21-14, Phillies at 21-15, out of nowhere pretty much with those two teams. The Nationals, who really struggled out of the gate, much like the Yankees, and all of a sudden they're 8-2 in their last 10. They're 20-18. So all these teams are now ahead of the Mets. I mean, at least the Marlins are still behind you, but just terrible what's going on there. And the Yankees, as we mentioned, I guess it really doesn't matter because there's no reason for us to talk baseball anymore. The Yankees are never going to lose a game again.
No, they're going to
the greatest team in the history of the world.
120 game winners.
They're going to win 120 games this year. They're going to win the World Series.
They're going to get MVP, the whole 9 yards, whatever. So why even bother?
There's no, this will be the last baseball discussion we probably have this year, but they've won 17 out of 18, 8 in a row. They started 9-9. They moved to 26-10, a game ahead of the Red Sox after winning last night. They won 3-2 in the first game, 9-6 last night. And Stan with 2 home runs in that first game. Interesting, of his 8 home runs, 2 came on opening day and 2 came in this first game in this series. So 4 out of his home runs have come in 2 games. But last night late, it was Gardner with the triple, Judge with the home run, as Alex Cora. I don't like the idea of trying to get Kimbrel with a 5-out save, especially this time of year. It's just not necessarily do that. The Bethel kid, Matt Barnes, was shaky to start, and he put guys on from the bottom of the order. We got about 30 seconds left, so we'll see if the Red Sox can salvage at least one game of the series and end this domination by the Yankees, or if we'll just have to deal with the fact that they're never going to lose. Red Sox 1 game back at 25-11.
We're not live next week,
We are off next week. We'll be back in 2 weeks. The NBA, we could be looking at some Game 7s by then. The series might not be over, so we'll see what happens, and we'll see about all that when we get back. We'll see you then. All right, take care.